Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and Henry Danger is Schneider's Bakery's latest show. I could probably end the review right here because that tells you everything you need to know about this show. Same character archetypes, same weird plotting structure problems, same way characters deliver dialogue and conversations to each other, same type of punchlines, same type of cinematography. It's all so similar to iCarly, Victorious, Drake and Josh, and Sam and Cat. Heck, they even used the same laugh track that they used way back in the Drake and Josh days. If you've seen any of my Bottom of the Bakery videos, then you know exactly the problems that those shows had, and thusly the same problems that this show has. So let's start with the characters. You have Captain Man, also known as Ray, who is basically just Spencer from iCarly if he had a superhero alter ego. He says weird things, acts weird, and does a lot of really physical comedy. It's pretty much just Spencer again. There's our main character's best friend, whose name I'm not even learning because he is basically just Josh and Gibby mashed together. There's a lot of the same acting like a doofus, dorky shtick that both of those characters got. There's also Charlotte, who's really sassy and kind of rude. Almost like a Sam Light, except for some reason she can hack computers. There's Henry, our main character, who honestly seems kinda bland. I don't actually mind him, I kinda like him, but nothing about him stands out in any way. He shares that with Carly. And there's also Henry's little sister. You remember how everyone hated Megan from Drake and Josh, and felt she was overused and super annoying, especially because she never got any sort of comeuppance or get caught for any of the things she ever did? Well, Henry's sister is a little bit like that, except she screams every single line. She is also constantly obsessing over social media and her phone. It's Megan 2, social media boogaloo. Though at least Megan made for a good antagonist every now and then and could get a few laughs. This girl is just a pathetic little brat. She does get punished occasionally, but it's not worth putting up with her character the rest of the time for those few moments of punishment. In terms of the stories on this show, occasionally they're alright, but more often than not, they have problems, ranging from minor ones to pretty dang big. Take the case of the first episode after the movie. Henry is tired and falling asleep because he is having a hard time balancing being a superhero, his life at school, and his friends. He's in danger of failing a test, so Ray decides that he should just zap Henry with this magical helmet that'll make him learn all the things he needs to learn. It works, but it makes Henry's speech all garbled. He goes into school, takes the test, and passes. End of episode. The issue with all of this is that the test is supposed to just be a quick physical representation of his greater problems, i.e. not being able to balance things and falling asleep. How on earth does passing this test help him with every other problem he has? He's gonna have a problem with the rest of school and balancing that and everything else. It never shows any sort of solution to that big major issue. The real solution should have been something along the lines of maybe spending less time with his friends or deciding that schoolwork isn't quite as important as saving lives. But no, magical helmet magically passes the test, magically everything's better by the next episode. It's not a big issue, but it's representational of a lot of the same plotting issues that Sam and Cat and iCarly had. The jokes aren't really doing much of anything for me, and I think it's just because I've built up an immunity to Schneider's Bakery humor. This is now the 5th show that features a lot of the same style of comedy, so I'm willing to bet a lot of other people feel the same way as I do, and have just kind of grown intolerant for these kind of jokes. Also, the laugh track is unbearable. Because this is a superhero show, whenever Henry or whoever does something heroic, the audience has to clap and cheer. And whenever there's drama, we have to get the ooh. Quite frankly, it's obnoxious. And the fact that they're still using this crutch is absolutely pathetic. Grow a backbone and let your comedy and story stand on its own without having to spoon feed me how I should be feeling. There's also other random weird things, like how in the pilot episode the bad guy is a grown man that acts like a toddler. It's really awkward and unpleasant, and I was very relieved to find out that this guy wasn't the main antagonist of the series. The thing about the show is that it's trying to be campy and cheesy. It's not trying to be big or epic in any way. It knows it doesn't have the special effects budget for it, and quite frankly, it doesn't have the story writing for it. And to be absolutely clear, I think that these cheesy, campy superhero shows can work really well. 60s Batman proved that. It still holds up today for being as weird and charming as it is. And because they're not treating things super seriously, there is a little wiggle room in making the plots a little bit sillier, a little bit weirder, and a little bit more in the background compared to the comedy. Now, just because it's campy doesn't mean they can't make any mistakes with the superhero thing. First of all, they don't have any sort of consistent antagonist from the beginning of the show, which I think is a mistake. Superheroes need a main antagonist, a main villain that they keep coming back to. And while I'm glad it wasn't the toddler, or the infant, or whatever he was called, I do still think that early on in the series, they should have introduced a very often recurring villain. Also, typically a superhero's rogue squad of bad guys has something related to do with the hero. A lot of Spider-Man's villains have to do with animals. Similarly, Batman's villains are all really dark and creepy. Also, Henry becoming a sidekick to this guy comes out of nowhere. Henry has 0 powers and 0 training. He just replies to a job ad that says he literally needs to have no special skills and is brought down into the superhero's lair before Captain Man even has any way of knowing whether or not this kid is going to be sidekick material. I guess the implication is that he would have wiped his mind and just dropped him in a dumpster upstairs if he wasn't worthy. There's also the fact that early on in the show, they introduced this laser beam that can knock out anyone. It's often used as a way for Henry or Captain Man to incapacitate people who are getting close to discovering their identities. However, this weapon is pretty much just an instant win button if they were to ever actually use it on a bad guy. You could just one hit knock him out. Heck, the thing is even implied to have a kill ray as well. And yet, it's more often than not just used on regular people. And I know what you're thinking, oh, maybe it can only be used on humans. Well, most of the villains on this show are very humanoid. They may only have one specific power, like metal teeth, which would in no way mean that they can't be incapacitated. And because Henry has no training, no powers, and doesn't use the laser beam in actual fights most of the time, his part of the fighting typically amounts to jumping on the bad guy's back and trying to like chokehold him or something. It looks pretty lame. In general, the whole show feels like a rough draft of making a superhero show, made by someone who doesn't really understand superheroes that well beyond the superficial level. Superhero stories have been around for a long time. Many, hundreds of thousands of issues of comics were made with these stories in mind, and tons of heroes have been made over the years. Which means we have a lot of tropes and ideas that work consistently, and a lot of other tropes and ideas that have been proven to just not work. Even if the show is going for a cheesy, campy vibe, it is still kind of bad that it's missing a lot of key elements. Alright, let me talk about the few positives that this thing has. It's a superhero show, meaning that it's the first Schneider's Bakery show to feature full-on fantasy elements. And the cheesiness is definitely intentional, which means it can be focused and refined instead of feeling out of place and accidental. Additionally, the show has what I like to call Schneider's Bakery charm. I don't know exactly what this is. It might be the few really likable characters, it might just be the whole overall thing, but something about these Schneider's Bakery shows really make me want to like them. Even if I don't, even if I come away from every episode feeling unsatisfied, something makes me want to go back and watch more, even if I don't like it. I don't know, maybe Nickelodeon finally invented a way to subliminally control my mind, but there's just something about these shows that makes me really want to give them a chance. It's possible that it's Henry and Ray, as I honestly do like both these characters. Even if Ray is just discount Spencer, he is still pretty funny from time to time, and he definitely has his charm. And Henry, at least as far as I've seen into the series, seems like a genuinely good and nice kid. Unfortunately, that's the nicest thing I can say. At best, this show is mediocre. And that wouldn't be so bad if this wasn't the same stuff I've seen for a decade now. Heck, technically it traces all the way back to Kenan and Kel, which is 2 decades ago. Within the context of all the other shows I've seen previously, it's simply not worth your time. Especially the scenes with the little sister. I can't recommend this show under any circumstances. When you consider how big superheroes are right now and how many different superhero cartoons are out, why would you even bother watching Henry Danger when there are tons of shows, both past and present, that do a great job of representing superheroes? Well, at least it's better than Teen Titans Go. And it's an improvement over Sam and Cat, so maybe they're getting better? Ugh, I really do worry about Schneider's Bakery's next show coming in September about the video game making girls with Kel Mitchell. PIEGUYRULZ, out.